Today, we're talking Leagues of Votaan, Slaves to Darkness, and even Horus Lupercal. All this and more in this week's Hobby News. I'm Angela, you're watching Hobby Night. Now let's get to it. Nova is happening this weekend, and that means we've gotten a whole bunch of reveals from Games Workshop. So let's go ahead and we can drive because we have a vehicle to talk about first because we're talking about the Leagues of Votaan. I was setting myself up for a transition and I didn't even realize it. Let's talk about these wonderful new squats. Because we have a variety of new models to take a look at, and we have the Hecaton Land Fortress to talk about first, which is probably one of my favorite new models from this entire lineup. It's partially because I've also seen somebody paint it up as a TMNT turtle like van, and it's perfect. It's like absolutely perfect. But I also just really like the shape of it, and I think it looks like it'd be just so much fun to paint. We also got a couple of characters in Uthar the Destined, which I swear is a character from Warhammer Fantasy, but I was looking it up. I couldn't find an exact match.
Warcraft.
Oh, is that what it is?
Uthar.
Yes, you're right. I knew there was another character that I had seen with that name, and that's what it was reminding of. I do like this character. I especially like the scarring that they did on his head, although the helmeted look is kind of cool as well. We also got the Einherjar Champion, which I do really like the look of. They're adding more and more runes the more and more elite we get on these Votaan models. And personally, for me, that is exactly what I'm wanting to see out of these, because I want them to feel a little bit more like actual space dwarves. And I feel like we're getting there. We also got the Borkin Ironmaster, Borkin. I probably completely butchered that, I'm so sorry. The Ironmaster, who I really like the ecogs of. Those are the robot creatures that are with it. And oh my god.
Wait, they're called ecogs?
They're called ecogs.
Like email?
Yeah.
Cogs?
Yes, E-cogs, all caps.
This feels like blasphemy to the Omniscience.
It probably is, but I kind of love them and I think they look amazing. This particular model, again, he feels very dwarvish, but I like the addition of it being clearly in space with having the mechanical robots at his side. We also got, and this is a character from Warhammer Fantasy, the reveal of Grimnir. Now, don't get me wrong, they have changed one letter in his name to make him slightly different, but he is literally still an ancestor, and he looks very similar to kind of what they used to do for Warhammer Fantasy.
Question.
Yes.
Is it a named person, or is it like a status?
See, it might be a status because it's supposed to be an ancestor of the dwarves, right?
So
in this set,
you run more than one.
I don't think so. I have not looked at the rules yet for the Leagues of Votaan, so I'm not 100% sure on that.
How would you look at those rules?
Well, because they've been leaked. Yeah, the entire Leagues of Votaan Codex has been leaked. You can find it on Reddit or other places. We're not really going to go into too much detail on it, but I think this is a problem for Games Workshop, considering I feel more and more and more continues to be leaked. And now that we're getting just full-blown codexes, seems like a little bit of a problem. Now, we do have a few more models to talk about as well, and that is the Chthonian, I think, or Chthonian Berserkers with the mole grenade. The Chthonian Berserkers with the mole grenade launcher, and I love it. I just think it looks really cool. I actually really like these models. They're a little dressed down. They're not as armored as some of the other Votaan, and I just think they look stunning. Now, we didn't just get a reveal of a bunch of new individual units that you can eventually pick up when these models become available. We also got a reveal of the army box set that's coming, and frankly, I like the box art. I think it looks pretty nice. You're getting a codex in it, as well as a variety of miniatures and some data cards, which are very important. But really, we want to talk about those miniatures and what you're getting, right? Well, you're getting Uthar, which is one of the new models that was revealed. He'll be in there, but you can build him as a call if you'd like, instead of having the named character, which I always think is a nice option. You are also getting one of the champions, which is very neat. You're getting 3 of the pioneers, which I believe are their I almost said tournament twice, Terminator equivalents, and then you're also getting 20 of their standard warriors, which will basically build you up a patrol box worth of units, which means you can get playing as soon as you pick this box up. This is going to be the first opportunity anybody who is a fan of the new squats to actually get your hands on the models as well as the codex, and it should be coming out relatively soon because Games Workshop did say that it was going to be coming out right after the Chaos Codex, or the Chaos Demons Codex, which is currently up for pre-order, so here's hoping it's out later this month.
Horus is the first and favoured son of the Emperor. He's one of 18 demigods that were created to conquer the galaxy in the name of mankind. He embodied all of the best qualities that the Emperor himself had. He was an incredibly charismatic individual. He was a military genius, highly competent. The hosts of mankind would follow him literally into the gates of hell. He was put in charge of all of those armies when the Emperor retreated to Terra to undertake his own great work. The fates rested too heavily on his shoulders. The ruinous powers, the forces of chaos, looked upon this individual and they said, this is our opportunity, this is the weapon, this is the tool that we can use against the Emperor. And at the planet Davin, the Warmaster was injured and he was taken to the Davinite lodges, the temples, in order to be healed by the Davinite lodge priests. And it was during that ritual healing that chaos started to worm its way into his soul. He appeared to be the same, only he'd switched sides. He'd led this great rebellion against the Emperor. And then we get to a point 3 years into the Heresy where Horus undergoes a transformation and experiences a literal and metaphorical period in the Underworld. When he comes back, he's ascended. He's essentially the same model, the same design, the same character, but every single point of him has been rendered in a way that makes it look like he is swollen with the powers of chaos. It's bigger, it's darker, it's more powerful, it's more evil. There's a narrative, there's a story that is moving onwards towards its final destination, which happens at the Siege of Terra. Horus Ascended is the ultimate power-up for your army. He takes everything that's great about your army and magnifies it. It makes it more spectacular in battle, it makes it braver, it makes it more, frankly, demonic. It powers up everything about your army and it forms the ultimate centerpiece. Horus isn't the only Primarch to have ascended, and there's definitely scope for other Primarchs to go through a similar process, and maybe there's more models in the future that will do the same thing.
Okay, we've talked about the 41st millennium. Now we need to talk about 30k because we're going to Horus Heresy because gosh darn it, they keep spoiling us. And this time they've given us a brand new plastic miniature featuring the Warmaster himself, Horus. And he looks amazing. I like it. I think it's a great model. Love all the details, love the base. This makes me want all of the rest of the Primarchs in plastic, and if GW don't give them to me, I'll be very disappointed. Now, we don't just have Horus to talk about, we have one other model from the Horus Heresy to discuss, and I actually think is an equally cool miniature, and I really, really want one. We have a brand new assassin, And it is the Vanus Infocyte, which I think is very cool. I love the look of her. She's got a bunch of servitor heads, or I guess, are they considered arms when they're attached? I don't know. The point is, she looks amazing. Mechadendrites, that's what they're called. She's got a bunch of those, and she sabotages people with information, and I love this. She looks like a badass, and I want her. I want that model. I really, really, really want that model. Khorne has demanded that we return to Warhammer 40k because we have his Berserkers to talk about, and they are exactly what I was hoping for. They're heavily armored, they look gorgeous. I like that in the trailer they're fighting orcs. That doesn't make sense to me, but it's a nice contrast because the green skin versus the red armor. I dig it.
It's where Khorne and orcs fight.
Oh yeah, there is one. There is that. Okay, perfect. I think it makes total sense. I really like them. Sticking with the Khorne theme, we're now going to talk about the Gorechosen of Dromm, because we got a new reveal for another Underworld's Nether Maze set, and I do like these guys, but there's this trend that I'm noticing with the Age of Sigmar models. It happens in the Underworld sets, it happens in just the standard Age of Sigmar sets. Everybody since the Lumineth Realm Lords has they've all had to have horns on their heads or wrapped around their necks. There's just been this insane emphasis on antlers or tusks. And I get it, they're cool. They make for something interesting and fun to paint. They give you an option for some lighter color tones thrown on otherwise somewhat darker models. But Games Workshop, please. You're going a little overboard because these aren't the only models that do it. These guys are very cool. They're not my favorite of the Underworld's kits. I don't know if I'll be picking these ones up, but I do think they look pretty cool. That guy with the hammer especially is my favorite.
Have you been a victim of unjust destruction at the hands of rampaging Saurians? Do you wish you had a pair of big, strong arms to butcher your Skaven problem? For creature problems, great and small, call the Bloodpelt Hunter today. Main course service with no leftovers.
I want to talk about the Bloodpelt Hunter because we have a new Ogre and he saw the trend that everybody in Age of Sigmar is doing of wrapping antlers on their head, and he was like, I have to get on this. Let me just wildly wrap some stuff on, stick some antlers with them, and we're gonna call it done. This is by far my favorite model that has done this stupid trend, but he looks brilliant. He just did it in such an Ogre fashion and it's fantastic. I really like this model. The whole hunter thing I think is really cool, and I like that has a bunch of trophies on his waist because that gives you a lot of opportunity for like cool things to do with painting and just making it a little bit more unique and not as humdrum as some of the other models.
little book of stories for the squishies. Well, I has got a real story. Behemoth was coming back, and the world was trembling, till the hammer god killed him stone dead with his tiny, cheating hammer. And now they think we're done, broken. But they is wrong, and we don't forget. King Brodd's got a bone to pick with all the shiny squishies.
We don't just have this lovely ogre to talk about, we have a giant to talk about as well with King Brodd. He was also announced. He also has antlers and horns all over him, and it's fine. It looks fine, but I'm really, this trend is just not something I'm into. However, that hammer he's wielding, I am very into. There's just something about the sort of natural bark look with that birchwood that I think looks stunning. Plus, he has a variety of little gremlins all over top of him. They're not actually called gremlins, they're called creepers, not the Minecraft variety, but they look kind of like gremlins to me. I think they're adorable. I always like when there's critters on other larger models. I think it adds a nice little element to things, and this model does that immensely. Both he and the ogre are coming out later this fall. Darkness are finally getting their army box set with their brand new codex inside, which is going to have a limited edition cover. But you're also getting a bunch of models in this box set, including the opportunity to finally get your hands on that fairly hideous new Chaos Demon Prince. I do not like this model when it comes to his face. He has other options, thankfully. There are 4 other heads, one dedicated to each of the 4 Chaos Gods that you can choose from, and I will probably be doing that. In particular, I like the Slanesh one as well as the Nurgle one, but frankly, I think all of them look better than what they tend to do for the box art. You also get a variety of Chaos Warriors in this box set. They're looking stunning as always. I love that chonky armor. And then we got our Ogoroids. I love the Ogoroids. I think they're really cool. I have a thing for Minotaur guys. And these particular ones are brand new. They look stunning, and I love that banner. I have a thing about banners. It's just so good. I think I might have to get them when they release separately, because I don't really know if I want this full box set. This set will be coming out this winter. Make sure to mark that on your calendars if you're wanting to get it. It's that time of the video where I interrupt to tell you about my Patreon and to let you know that we just added a Discord server which all tiers get access to. So if you're wanting a way to chat with me, share with me your projects, or just tell me what board games you're playing, definitely make sure to check the link below and check out my Patreon. Hey guys, remember that board game that Games Workshop made called Cursed City that they said they weren't going to support? Well, guess what? They lied to us. They're supporting it. We are getting a brand new expansion to the game, but it's not exactly like we would expect, especially when you compare it to Blackstone Fortress, which was the previous Warhammer Quest game. This time, we are just getting a pack update that includes cards, tokens, tiles, that kind of thing to add to your game. And the reason for this is because they made some mistakes, I think, when they were originally planning this, partially outside of their control because of COVID, but they have some cards in there that are adding some rules to some models that exist for the Soulblight Gravelords, which I said back when those models were announced and then released last year that they looked like they should have been expansions for Cursed City. Well, they are now, because this expansion set is adding cards to be able to use them, which I actually do think is kind of cool. It's just an interesting approach to the game that's very different from what they did before. It's not actually that different from what you see from actual board game companies if you play a lot of those, which I think is an interesting route for them to take. And I think it's a great adjustment considering I definitely think they had some major problems when it came to this particular product, which is such a shame because it is a really cool product. I mean, it's all vampires. It has a great aesthetic. I really, really wanted to be so much more into this when it was first announced. And frankly, the fact that we're actually seeing support for the game actually happening makes me want to dive back into my core set, maybe try the game out and see where they're going to take it going forward. Let me know if you've picked up the core set since they've re-released it and what you've thought of it down in the comments below. Last but not least, I want to draw some attention to Warhammer Alliance, Games Workshop's program where they allow clubs and libraries and schools to basically get supplies to help get kids into the game, whether that be through the hobby, through actually playing it, all geared towards teaching the youth, better skills like art skills, math skills, critical thinking, obviously socializing, because gaming is a very social activity, and especially wargaming can be, because you have to have an opponent. There's so much you can do for it.
And you have to buy all of the miniatures!
You don't necessarily have to buy all the miniatures, because if your club takes part in this program, they might be getting some miniatures for free. If you are a new subscriber to the Warhammer Alliance program, whether it's through your club, your library, any of those things, you can get their updated Warhammer Alliance resource pack, which comes with paints, brushes, tools to get started playing, magazines, and of course, miniatures. And if you're already part of the program, maybe your school already does this, there are ways for them to top up their kits and get some of these new materials as well each year, which is really nice to see. Like, I know this isn't a huge amount of support sometimes, and there's always room for improvement, but having Games Workshop actually support these youth organizations and try to get kids into gaming, I think is really important. Games do help develop a lot of really great skills. If you've got kids, I would highly encourage playing games with them, because I don't know, I just find it really, really good. And honestly, even if you're an adult, you have no kids, play more games. It keeps you on your toes. I know my critical thinking has immensely gone up the more and more that I've played. So I really encourage it, and I like seeing these kinds of programs.
Because it generates more customers!
All right, that has been it for this week in hobby news. It was a long one. We had a lot of trailers to look at. There was a lot of new miniatures to cover, but hey, that's what happens when you have a convention that's dedicated to wargaming and Games Workshop decides, let's just offload a whole bunch of what's coming up next for like the last half of the year. I think it was pretty good. Let me know what you thought down below. And if you went to Nova, please tell me all about it in the comments, because I really want to go one day. And I know I've already been talking with some of you about it. It sounds like it's been an absolute blast. I have been Angela, and before I head out, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons for making it so content like this can continue to happen. Without your guys' support, we would not be doing this, so thank you very, very much. I hope you have a wonderful hobby night.